Hi there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. I have a fun project. Again, this is not something new, but something that I just wanted to have a go at. I haven't done it in a fair while and I really love the results it gives. So we are going to have a bit of a play with some marbling. I'm going to be using some watercolor paper, and this is the cheapest shaving foam that I could find in our local supermarkets. Any shaving foam at all will do, the cheaper the better. And I'm going to be using my Distress Oxide Reinkers. You can use any Reinkers that you have. They don't have to be the Oxides at all. But these are the ones that I'm going to be using to start off with today. I'm going to try out a couple of different color schemes just so that you can get an idea of what they look like, and then I'm going to go ahead and make a card with them after this. So I'm starting out with 4 colors, some greens and some blues, and I have a little plastic card here, just like an old F-Post card or credit card or one of those types of cards, those plasticky ones. And then I'm going to put down quite a thin layer of shaving foam on my little non-stick mat. Now this mat is actually the Ranger replacement mat for the glass media mats, but it is the perfect size for me and it has a nice low price point in comparison, so it is my go-to when I need a non-stick mat. So all I'm doing with my Reinkers is I'm just putting some drops down, no pattern, or just put down however much you like, and you'll soon kind of figure out after you've done your first couple of prints about how much sort of looks good or what the look is that you're after. If you want some white space, obviously you need to leave some white space, but if you want mainly color, then naturally you need to make sure that most of the surface of the foam is covered. So I'm just using a little straw to mix it up a little bit. And then I'm going to take my watercolor paper, this happens to be the Holtz watercolor paper, give it a little wiggle and then pull aside my foam, which is just sitting on my non-stick mat. And then this is where I'm taking the plastic card to scrape off the excess foam that's left on top. So this kind of gives you a good idea, if you leave some white space, that you're going to get a little bit of white in between all of the marbling. So that's what number 1 looks like. And then you can go right back in, and I've done nothing to it. All I'm going to do is add a little more of the Reinkers and mix it up even more. You can kind of mix it up to the point where it almost looks like it might be muddying and looking messy, I found. And it still looks really good when you take a print. So you can see here when I pull off all of the excess foam that it still looks really good and creates a cool pattern. And you don't have to use watercolor paper. I have definitely done this using copy paper and things, but it just depends what you want to do with the prints. If you're just having fun and trialing it out, it's good to use some copy paper and see where you get to. Because I was turning these into cards, I used a slightly more heavyweight paper. So now you can keep going, endlessly keep going, but I have cleaned off my first lot and put down a second little lot of shaving foam, spread it out just a little bit. And in this one, I'm going to use some purples, pinks, and oranges. Now, normally you wouldn't put orange and purple together because they would create mud, but I definitely found using this marbling technique that you had a lot of leeway before it came to that. So you can see I am mixing it all up. I'm going to take my paper, give it a small little wobble, and then peel it off and do exactly the same thing. So I just put it on a piece of copy paper, and then I use that plastic, like an old credit card or anything, and to wipe off the excess foam, and you can see the cool pattern that it's created there. So it's definitely not mud at all. Although I didn't mix it up thoroughly, I really like the pattern that I got. So you can see here I'm also using my palette knife to kind of mix it up a little bit, and this one I was a little bit worried if it would look a little muddy. But it actually turns out absolutely perfect as well. So this is definitely one of those techniques that it feels like it's hard to go wrong. I had a really fun time doing this, and as I said, you can pull print after print after print and still be having lots of fun. So I really enjoyed going back to this technique. I've done this with my daughter a lot of times. It's really fun to do with kids, and the product that you get at the end is cool for both adults and kids, I guess. So these are the prints, the couple that you've just seen me pull, these 4, and I kind of wasn't sure which ones I wanted to work with. Any of them I felt like I could make work, but I decided for this video in particular to go ahead and use the kind of orangey ones. I'm going to use that one specifically to the left. I quite like the fact that it's got a little bit more white space than the other one, and I also like the shaded lilac, which is the light purple that's showing through a little bit too. Now I have this Octagon die set here, and I am going to just use that smallest one and die cut out as many as I possibly can. I'm not going to count them, I know that I got heaps. And I'm going to turn them all over and add foam tape to the back of all of them. You'll see that some of these are just partial shapes. They don't have the full shape that I was able to fit on the piece of paper, but I die cut them out anyway because I will need that to go on my card front, so they were just as useful to me as the whole complete shapes. I'm using a little bit of Alina's foam tape to stick onto the back of these, and after a minute or so I am all sorted and adding the final bits and pieces. You don't have to add this much foam tape, but definitely you could get away with just using a foam square, I'm sure. I have this Nina metallic cardstock collection. I have had this for so long. I will see if it's still available. I know I got it from scrapbook.com, but I got it a long time ago. So I will see if it is still available there and link it down below in case you're interested. But I'm taking this kind of silvery metallic cardstock and I'm going to put all of these octagons on this piece of paper. Now I started off, these are kind of easy to line up because you can line up the points of the octagon with the edge of the card. So you can see that I started on the very right hand side there, and all I'm doing is just lining them up by eye. And I think I actually did a pretty good job. Usually if things are off a little bit skew, it really frustrates me, and that's all I see when I look at the card. But this lined up pretty well, I think. If you do happen to give this technique a go, or you have given this technique a go, I would love for you to come and join our Facebook group and share the photos with me and the finished projects that you have enjoyed creating. I would absolutely love to see them. I will leave a link to our Facebook group down in the description box below, along with any links to the products that I can find that I've used in today's video. So once I have the whole card front finished, I've just turned it over and I'm using my scissors to just cut off any of the excess. Some of them I will need to cut off the excess and then reuse them just to fill up that little bottom right hand corner there. There's one tiny little bit that was bugging me and I needed to make sure it was all filled in. So I've just got a little piece of a shape there that was left over, and I'm able to cut it so that it completes our pattern on the front. Now there are many ways that you could go about turning this into a card or creating from here. So I'm going to use the same exact shape, but I wanted there to be a tiny border, and the next shape size down was just too small for my liking. So here's a bit of a trick that you can do. This die has some stitching on it, so all I'm going to do is I die cut out the exact same shape in the silver metallic cardstock that I used for the background, and I'm just cutting off a slither, which is just exactly on that stitching line, out of each of those sides, and that way when I line it back up with the white one, it is just a fraction smaller and the perfect amount of border that I was after. So you don't have to have a second die or anything, you can make it work. Then this is a really old happy birthday die. I am using a little piece of Nina Solar White 80-pound paper, and it has some stickered adhesive on the back, which I really like using with this fine die. And this die in particular has little balloons that are at the end of the Y, but I'm not a huge fan of the balloons, so I usually cut them off. Other than that, I really like the die itself, and I'm going to gently peel it away from the release paper, the backing paper from that stickered adhesive. And by using this, it means that I don't have to worry about trying to use liquid glue or anything to adhere it down onto my little silver backing. So I'm going to pop it right in the middle. The sentiment is the perfect size to kind of fit on there, and it doesn't matter if it hangs over just a teeny tiny bit because I know it's going to go on that white background and that will kind of even it out nicely. As I said, you could definitely create this card and turn it into any occasion at all. It could be happy birthdays, it could be thank yous, it could be wishing you wells, it could be retirement, sympathy. You could, depending on the colours that you have used for your marbling, you could create cards for any occasion. And in fact, this might be a really good one to create cards for the boys in your life, again, depending on your colour choices. So anyway, I'm going to adhere that panel down the silver panel. It was originally cut to a 4 by 5 1/4 panel, so it fits nicely on my 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card base. Then right about here is where I decided that I wanted some really small, I can't remember, but I think these are maybe 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter or 1/2 centimeter by 1/2 centimeter. They're just really small squares that I felt I wanted to go in between those shapes. It felt like the perfect opportunity to pop these in. Now this is a kind of a little fine detail that you can see really well in real life, but it is very hard to kind of pick up on the video, I guess, how much of a difference it makes. I really like it, but again, it's just one of those finishing touches that you could definitely skip if you wanted to. But I'm just using a little bit of liquid glue and dropping in one of those squares into each one of those holes. So you can see there, it kind of does make a really nice difference in real life, and again, hard to pick up on video. So you can see here, it's a really good close-up view of the finished product of the background of my card. And to finish up all together, I'm just going to add the sentiment right in the middle, and I'm going to stop there. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you enjoyed watching this marbling process, and I hope that you give it a go or were inspired by it. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Thanks, bye!